Ever been in those situations where, the pressure's on and you got to make a big call?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like everything hinges on this one decision.
Yeah,
Could be at work, could be in your personal life. I know I've had a few of those. And sometimes I wonder, like, did anything I learned actually prepare me for that?
right.
That real pressure cooker moment.
Yeah, yeah. You think back to all that training, all that preparation. Does it really translate when you're in the thick of it?
Well, today we are looking at something that's trying to bridge that gap. And it's pretty cool, actually. It's called the EON Decision Simulator.
Interesting.
It's a brand new thing from EON Reality.
Okay.
And it's all about using XR, extended reality
Oh, I see.
to create these incredibly immersive training scenarios.
So instead of just like reading about a crisis or, doing a role play in a classroom,
Exactly.
you're actually thrown right into the middle of it virtually.
That's the idea. We're talking about emergency rooms, disaster zones, hostage negotiations.
Wow.
Even tough business decisions where you have to think on your feet.
Oh, okay. So they're trying to replicate those high-pressure environments where every choice really matters.
Right. And that's what we're going to deep dive into today. How does this EON Decision Simulator work?
Right.
And can it actually make us better at making those critical calls, when the stakes are really high?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think to understand the potential of this simulator, we also have to understand the problems with traditional training.
Yeah.
Like what's not working with the way we've been doing things.
Right, because clearly there's a reason they're developing this whole new approach. So what are the big weaknesses?
Well, one thing that jumps out from the press release is how abstract a lot of traditional training is.
Abstract. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's a lot of theory, right?
Yeah.
Reading textbooks, case studies.
Mm-hmm.
Even the role-playing can feel kind of artificial.
Right.
Like it doesn't really capture the emotional intensity.
Yeah. You're not actually feeling the pressure of those consequences.
Exactly. So it's hard to really engage with the material on a gut level.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like you can understand something intellectually, but until you've lived it,
Right.
you don't really know how you'll react.
Totally. And that kind of leads into the second big problem, which is that disconnect from the real world.
Okay.
Because traditional training often lacks that immersive element
Mm-hmm.
and that immediate feedback you get in real life.
Okay.
The stuff you learn can stay kind of theoretical.
Yeah, it stays up here.
Exactly.
Doesn't always translate to action.
Right. So when you're suddenly in a chaotic situation, it's harder to apply what you learned.
Because you haven't internalized it.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's what they're trying to fix with this EON Decision Simulator.
Yeah, that's the goal.
By using XR to really put you in the situation. So how do they do it? What's the secret sauce?
Well, they focus on a few key things. One is what they call narrative-driven engagement.
Narrative-driven engagement. So it's not just a simulation. There's a story there.
Right. They want to pull you in emotionally.
Okay.
Make you care about the outcome.
So you're invested.
Exactly. And when you're emotionally invested, you remember things better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about movies or books that really got to you.
Exactly.
You remember those details.
Right. And that's what they're trying to tap into. It makes the learning stick.
So you're not just going through the motions.
Exactly.
Okay, that's interesting. What else? What other tricks do they have up their sleeves?
Well, another big one is immediate consequence visibility.
Okay, break that down for me.
So basically, in the simulation,
Mm-hmm.
you make a decision.
Yeah.
And you see the result right away.
Boom, instant feedback.
Right. No waiting for a debrief or a report. You see how your choice played out.
Like cause and effect, right there in front of you.
Exactly. And that really reinforces the connection between action and outcome.
Makes it real.
Right. You feel the weight of your choices.
I bet. No more second guessing whether you did the right thing.
You see it play out right there in the simulation.
Okay, so narrative-driven engagement.
Yeah.
Immediate consequence visibility. What else do they have?
Real-time feedback and adaptive learning.
Okay, that sounds a mouthful.
Basically, you're interacting with virtual characters,
Okay.
having dialogues. And you get feedback on your choices as you go.
Gotcha. So it's not just like a choose-your-own-adventure book where you flip to a page.
Right.
It's interactive.
Exactly. And they even have these adaptive hints.
Oh, that's interesting. What are those?
So the system can actually figure out if you're struggling
Okay.
and give you tailored guidance.
So it's not just pass or fail. It helps you learn.
Right. It pushes you to think strategically, but it gives you support along the way.
Okay, so this isn't just for like one specific type of person or industry. They're aiming for a pretty wide audience here, right?
Yeah, the press release says it's for anyone who has to make tough calls under pressure.
So we're talking about doctors, EMTs, police negotiators.
Anyone in a crisis situation.
Mm-hmm.
But also business leaders, CEOs, project managers.
People who have to make strategic decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Can you walk us through some of the specific scenarios they've cooked up?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the examples is set in a hospital.
Okay.
It's called Life or Limb.
Ooh, that's ominous.
Yeah, you're the medical director,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a mass casualty event.
So resources are stretched thin.
Exactly. You've got multiple patients coming in,
Uh-huh.
one with severe chest pain, maybe a heart attack,
Oh, wow.
and a teenager with a fractured arm.
Okay.
But you only have one trauma bay available.
So you have to choose.
You have to decide who gets priority.
Man, that's a tough call.
And then to make it even more intense,
Yeah.
the virtual doctor,
Uh-huh.
Dr. Chen, challenges your decision.
Oh, really?
Asks, are you sure? Junkin's situation seems more life-threatening. Reassess.
Wow, so it makes you second-guess yourself.
Exactly. Forces you to really think through the consequences.
And then you see the results of your choice.
Right. The simulation shows you the impact.
Powerful stuff. Okay, what about the other scenarios?
Well, there's one called Earthquake Aftermath,
Okay.
where you're the emergency management director.
So coordinating the whole response.
Yeah. And it's chaos, right?
Of course, after a major earthquake.
Exactly. You've got damaged buildings downtown, a tsunami threat at the harbor, a hospital that's been hit hard,
Oh, no.
and a residential gas leak.
So many problems at once.
And you only have 4 rescue teams to deal with all of it.
You got to prioritize.
That's the challenge. And you've got virtual advisors giving you input.
Like who?
There's a Captain Reyes, a first responder,
Okay.
and an engineer Davis who warns you about the situation at the hospital.
Same.
That it's critical to evacuate patients immediately.
Oh, wow.
And the example they give is the user sending 2 teams to the hospital
Yeah, makes sense.
and splitting the others between the high rises and the tsunami threat.
Okay, so these scenarios really make you weigh the options.
Right. It's not just about reacting. It's about making the most strategic decision.
With limited resources and time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've seen healthcare, we've seen disaster response. They're not just stopping there, right?
No, they also have business scenarios.
Okay, tell me more.
So one example is where you're dealing with a struggling product line.
Okay.
Market share's declining.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, and you have to decide what to do. Incremental improvements,
Mm-hmm.
heavy investment in R&D, or a complete pivot to a new market.
Those are big choices.
Yeah, each with its own risks and rewards.
And who are you interacting with in this scenario?
So you've got the CTO,
Okay.
Mira Patel,
Mm-hmm.
and the CFO,
Okay.
James Rodriguez.
Okay.
And they give you their perspectives.
Like what?
Well, James Rodriguez, the CFO,
Yeah.
he suggests specializing in enterprise security devices.
Interesting.
Leveraging existing tech expertise, but going after a different market.
Okay.
And in the example, the user decides to go with that pivot.
Yeah.
And the CTO, Mira Patel, says it's a strategic choice that leverages their assets effectively.
So it's not just about the immediate, it's about long-term strategy.
Right, and I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about this simulator.
Yeah.
It's not just about testing your reflexes. It's about making you think strategically.
Okay, so they've clearly put a lot of thought into these scenarios, but what's the bottom line? What are the big takeaways about this simulator?
Well, the press release talks about the impactful benefits for both learners and organizations.
Yeah, let's break those down.
So one of the biggest things is that it takes theoretical knowledge and turns it into actual skills.
You're not just reading about it, you're doing it.
Exactly. And they claim that it can significantly reduce training time.
Makes sense. You're getting hands-on experience in a condensed format.
Right. And it's way more engaging than traditional methods.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like playing a video game, but with real-life implications.
Exactly. And the goal is to make people more prepared for the real world.
To handle those high-stakes situations.
Exactly.
So it's not just about passing a test. It's about being ready to perform when it matters.
Right. And they also talk about how it fosters deeper insights.
Like what?
You start to see the connections between different factors
Mm-hmm.
and understand the complexities of decision-making.
Okay, so it's not just about following a checklist. It's about developing judgment.
Exactly.
Okay, and before we wrap up, let's talk a bit about the company behind this, EON Reality. What do we know about them?
Well, they're a global leader in AR and VR-based knowledge transfer.
Okay.
They work across a lot of different sectors, education, healthcare, enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And their mission is to make education and decision-making training more accessible and effective.
So they're really committed to this idea of immersive learning.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of experience in this space.
Okay, well, it definitely seems like they're onto something with this EON Decision Simulator.
I think so, too. It's a really interesting approach to a problem that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, how do you prepare people for those moments where the pressure's on and everything's at stake?
Right, and I think that's the key question. Can this simulator actually bridge that gap between theory and practice?
Can it make people better decision makers in the real world?
It's an exciting possibility.
It is, and it makes you wonder how these kinds of technologies are going to change the way we learn and train in the future.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. What if we could step into these virtual environments and practice handling all kinds of challenging situations?
Whether it's a medical emergency, a natural disaster, or a tough business negotiation.
Right, we could really hone our skills in a safe and controlled setting.
And build that confidence to make the right call when it matters most.
Exactly.
So, for all of you listening out there, I want you to think about this. How could immersive technologies like this impact your field?
Yeah, what kind of training would benefit from this kind of approach?
It's a fascinating question to consider, and it might just be the key to unlocking a whole new level of learning and development.
Something to think about?
For sure.